I, 28F, had been married to my husband Wally, 30M, for 5 years when everything fell apart. We met during our junior year of college through mutual friends at a campus party. Wally was the quiet, smart type who always seemed to know exactly what to say to make me laugh. After that party, we kept running into each other at the campus coffee shop where I worked part-time. He would stay for hours, claiming he could concentrate better there than in the library, but I knew he was just trying to spend time with me. We started dating a few months later, and things moved pretty quickly. My friends warned me that we were rushing things, but I was so in love I didn't listen. Wally was different from the other guys I dated. He was ambitious, caring, and seemed to understand me perfectly. We moved in together right after graduation when we both got jobs in the same city. Looking back, maybe I should have seen the red flags. Wally proposed after just a year of living together, saying he couldn't imagine life without me. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony. My mom wasn't too happy about the rush. She kept telling me that I was too young to tie myself down. But I thought she was just projecting her own failed marriage onto me. See, my parents had a terrible marriage. My dad cheated on my mom multiple times throughout their relationship. The first time I caught him was when I was 10. He was kissing our neighbor in our garage when he thought nobody was home. I kept that secret for 2 years until my mom finally caught him herself with someone else. They divorced when I was 12, and it destroyed my mom for years. She never really trusted anyone again after that. I told Wally all about this history early in our relationship. I made it clear that infidelity was my one absolute deal breaker. He seemed to understand and always reassured me that he would never do anything to hurt me like that. He even suggested we share phone passwords and locations as a way to build trust. That's why it was so strange when he started getting protective of his phone about a year ago. At first, it was subtle things. He started putting his phone face down whenever I was around. Then he changed his password and said it was a new company security policy. He added a fingerprint lock and stopped using his phone around me altogether. When I asked about it, he would get defensive and say I was being paranoid. The late nights at work started around 8 months ago. Wally said his team had a big project with tight deadlines, so he needed to stay late several times a week. He works as a software developer at a tech startup, so crazy hours weren't completely unusual. But something felt different this time. He would come home looking guilty rather than tired, and he started showering as soon as he got home, something he never used to do. That's when Betty, 25F, entered the picture. She was a new developer who joined Wally's team about 6 months ago. I met her at the company holiday party in December. She seemed sweet and innocent, always asking Wally questions about coding and career advice. I actually felt bad for her because she was clearly struggling to fit in with the mostly male development team. Wally started mentoring her, or at least that's what he told me. She would message him constantly, even on weekends, with urgent questions about work. I asked him once if it was appropriate for her to contact him so much outside of work hours. He got angry and accused me of being jealous and unsupportive of his career. Looking back, I can't believe how blind I was. The signs were all there, the secret phone calls, the late nights, the defensive behavior. But I trusted him completely. I kept telling myself that Wally would never do what my dad did. He knew how much that would hurt me. 3 months ago, everything fell apart. I came home early from work with a terrible migraine. These headaches run in my family, and when they hit, I can barely function. I just wanted to take my medication and sleep it off. I never expected to find my husband in our bed with Betty. The image is burned into my brain, them tangled in the sheets that I had bought for our anniversary. Betty's clothes were scattered all over our bedroom floor. There were wine glasses on the nightstand. They had been drinking the expensive wine Wally's parents gave us for Christmas. I completely froze in the doorway. Wally jumped out of bed like he'd been electrocuted and started grabbing his clothes. Betty just sat there with the sheets pulled up to her chin, looking more annoyed than ashamed. When I finally found my voice and asked what was happening, Wally had the audacity to tell me to keep my voice down, like I was the one doing something wrong. I started screaming then, all the hurt and betrayal just came pouring out. That's when Wally did something I never thought he was capable of. He slapped me across the face. Hard. Then he grabbed my arms and told me to shut up and let him explain. He said it wasn't what it looked like, which was ridiculous because it was exactly what it looked like. The slap shocked me back to reality. I yanked away from him and ran out of the room. I grabbed my phone and keys from the entry table and drove straight to my best friend Kelly's place. My hands were shaking so badly I had to pull over twice. Wally kept calling and texting the whole time, leaving messages about how it was a one-time mistake and begging me to come home so we could talk. I stayed at Kelly's that night, barely sleeping. The next day, I waited until I knew Wally would be at work before going back to the house. I just wanted to pack some clothes and grab important documents like my passport and birth certificate. That's when I found Betty's diary in Wally's bedside drawer. She must have forgotten it in her rush to leave. What I read in that diary made me physically sick. They had been sleeping together for 4 months. Betty wrote in detail about their romantic encounters in our bed, in his office, even in his car. She wrote about how Wally told her I was controlling and that we were practically separated, just living together until our lease ended. He had been painting me as the villain while betraying me in the worst way possible. I photographed every single page of that diary. Then I created a new email account and sent all the photos to Betty's long-term boyfriend Mark, who she was apparently still with while sleeping with my husband. I also forwarded them to Wally's parents, who had always treated me like a daughter and bragged about what a perfect son they had. Finally, I posted selected pages on social media, tagging both Wally and Betty. I made sure their whole office saw what kind of people they really were. The fallout was immediate. Betty's boyfriend broke up with her on the spot. Wally's parents were devastated and his mom hasn't stopped calling me crying. Their company started an investigation into workplace relationships since Wally was technically Betty's mentor. Both of them were put on administrative leave pending the investigation. Wally showed up at Kelly's place yesterday, absolutely furious about what I'd done. He said I had no right to ruin Betty's life just because our marriage had problems. According to him, I was being vindictive and bitter, and Betty was an innocent party who got caught up in our marital issues. He demanded that I take down the social media posts and apologize to Betty. When I refused, he threatened to make my life hell during the divorce. I blocked him everywhere and filed for divorce first thing the next morning. Now some of our mutual friends are saying I went too far by exposing them publicly instead of handling it privately. But I don't think I owe them any privacy or protection after what they did. Wally betrayed me in our own bed and then physically assaulted me when I caught them. They deserve everything coming to them. Would you like me to continue with the updates as well, or would you like to review this expanded original post first? Update 1: Things have gotten even messier since my last post, and I've discovered some truths that make the whole situation even worse than I initially thought. Betty's ex-boyfriend Mark reached out to me last week through LinkedIn. At first, I was hesitant to respond because I didn't want to get dragged into more drama, but I'm glad I did because what he told me changed everything. Mark and I talked on the phone first. He thanked me for exposing the affair and said he had been suspicious of Betty's behavior for months but could never find concrete proof. She had gotten really good at covering her tracks and would always make him feel guilty for questioning her late nights at work or frequent business trips. Sound familiar? She used the same excuses with him that Wally used with me. After our phone call, Mark asked if we could meet in person because he had some information he thought I should know. We met at a coffee shop downtown. I chose a place far from Wally's office to avoid any chance encounters. Mark brought a whole folder of evidence with him. Apparently, Betty had done this before. She had a pattern of sleeping with married men at her previous jobs. Mark showed me messages from 2 other women whose husbands had affairs with Betty at her last company. They found him through social media after seeing my post about Betty. The pattern was always the same. Betty would join a new company, identify a successful married man, usually in a position to help her career, and play the role of the innocent young employee who needed mentoring. She would slowly work her way into their lives, first professionally, then personally. But here's where it gets really twisted. While Mark and I were comparing notes, he casually mentioned something about Betty and Wally knowing each other from before she joined his company. I thought he must be mistaken because Wally had acted like he only met Betty when she joined his team 6 months ago. But Mark insisted they had known each other longer. Betty was friends with Wally's sister Emma in college. I immediately called Emma. She's always been kind to me and we've stayed close even after everything that happened with Wally. When I asked her about Betty, there was a long silence on the phone. Then Emma started crying. She confessed that she had introduced Betty to Wally at her graduation party 2 years ago. Betty had been her roommate during senior year. According to Emma, a few months after the graduation party, Betty confided in her about having feelings for Wally. She told Emma she had a crush on him but would never act on it because he was married. Emma believed her. Betty was her best friend and had been her shoulder to cry on through several bad breakups. She didn't want to cause drama by telling me about Betty's crush, especially since Betty promised it was just a harmless attraction that would pass. The more Emma talked, the sicker I felt. Betty hadn't just been some new employee Wally started mentoring. She had been coming to our house for family dinners and game nights for almost 2 years, playing the role of Emma's sweet college friend while secretly sleeping with my husband. She had sat across from me at countless family gatherings, smiling and making small talk while betraying me the entire time. I remembered all the times Betty would join us for holidays when her own family was too far away to visit. She even helped me plan Wally's surprise birthday party last year. The whole time, she was just worming her way deeper into our lives, waiting for her chance. And Wally let it happen. He sat there watching me befriend the woman he was cheating with. Emma is devastated. She feels responsible for bringing Betty into our lives and has been calling me daily to apologize. She's also furious with Wally for taking advantage of her friendship with Betty to conduct their affair. She told me she had always worried about Wally's commitment issues. Apparently he had cheated on girlfriends in college, but Emma thought he had grown up since then. Wally's parents never knew about his college behavior because Emma kept it secret to protect him. The fallout from all this has been intense. Wally's family has completely turned against him. His parents are refusing to speak to him after learning not just about the affair, but about how long it had been going on and how he had used family gatherings as cover. Emma blocked him everywhere and told all their relatives the truth about his character. Wally got fired from his job last week after their investigation concluded. Turns out there were inappropriate emails between him and Betty on the company servers going back months before she officially joined the company. She resigned before they could fire her, and from what I heard through mutual connections, she's already interviewing at other tech companies in different cities. The really infuriating part is that Wally has been leaving me drunk voicemails blaming me for ruining his life and career. He says I had no right to expose their private relationship and that I'm just jealous because Betty is younger and more successful than me. He even showed up at my office yesterday, demanding to talk. Security had to escort him out while he yelled about how I was destroying his reputation out of spite. Some of our mutual friends have stopped taking sides after learning about Wally's history of cheating in college. They say it's clear there are two sides to every story and that maybe Wally and I weren't as perfect for each other as everyone thought. But I don't see how there can be two sides to lying and cheating. Wally and Betty deliberately deceived everyone for years. They used his sister's friendship to cover their affair and made fools of the entire family. I've blocked Wally's number and told my lawyer about his harassment. Emma wants to testify about his pattern of behavior if we need character witnesses for the divorce. I never thought I'd be grateful for finding Betty's diary, but without it, I might never have discovered the full extent of their deception. Update 2: I thought I had uncovered all of Wally and Betty's lies, but somehow they managed to hide an even bigger secret. Last week, Betty reached out to me through one of our mutual friends asking to meet. She said she had something important to tell me that couldn't be shared over the phone. My lawyer advised against meeting her, but my gut told me I needed to hear this. We met at a public cafe near my new apartment. Betty looked different, more worn down than the confident homewrecker I'd caught in my bed. She was nervous, kept fidgeting with her coffee cup and checking her phone. After 20 minutes of awkward small talk, she finally dropped the bomb. She and Wally had a child together, a 1-year-old son who lives with her parents in Oregon. I nearly threw up right there in the cafe. Betty pulled out her phone and showed me pictures of a baby boy who looked exactly like Wally, same blue eyes, same dimpled smile. She told me the whole story, and it was worse than anything I could have imagined. 2 years ago, when Wally and I were having problems I didn't even know we had, according to him, he and Betty had started sleeping together. This was right after Emma's graduation party where they first met. Betty got pregnant about 3 months into their affair. She said Wally promised he would leave me for her, but then I got that big promotion at work and suddenly he changed his mind. Betty was already 4 months pregnant when Wally told her he couldn't leave me. He said the timing wasn't right and that leaving his wife right after she got promoted would make him look bad. But he promised to support her and the baby financially if she kept things quiet. So Betty took a job offer in Oregon, told everyone she needed a fresh start, and moved away before she started showing. She gave birth to their son, James, last year. Wally had been paying her child support in cash and visiting them whenever he told me he was on business trips. All those late nights at work? He was actually on video calls with Betty and James. The business conferences he attended every few months? Those were visits to Oregon to see his son. The real kicker? Betty moved back here 6 months ago specifically to win Wally back. She thought if she got a job at his company and spent time around him, he would finally choose her and their son over me. She believed all his promises about leaving me when the time was right. She even turned down better job offers to take the junior developer position on his team. I called Wally's parents immediately after leaving the cafe. They needed to know they had a grandchild they never knew about. Wally's mom broke down crying on the phone. His dad was so angry he nearly drove to Wally's new apartment to confront him, but Wally's mom talked him down. They're devastated about having missed the first year of their grandson's life. Wally couldn't deny it when his parents confronted him. The evidence was all there: money transfers to Betty's account disguised as work expenses, airline tickets to Oregon, hotel receipts. He'd been maintaining a whole secret family while playing the perfect husband with me. He even helped me pick out furniture for what would have been our nursery, all while knowing he had a son with another woman. The worst part is that Betty actually tried to defend Wally during our meeting. She said he was under a lot of pressure trying to balance both relationships, and that he really did love both of us in different ways. She thought I should understand because relationships are complicated. As if having a secret child with a married man is just some complex relationship situation and not complete betrayal. I asked Betty why she decided to tell me now, after everything exploded. She said she felt guilty seeing how Wally's family was suffering and thought they deserved to know about James. But I think the real reason is that Wally's been pulling away from her since they both lost their jobs. She wanted to force his hand, either he commits to her and James publicly, or she exposes everything. Emma called me yesterday after hearing about James. She remembered watching Betty leave town suddenly 2 years ago, right after she and Wally started acting weird around each other. Emma had assumed they'd had some kind of falling out. Now she realizes she watched her best friend run away to hide a pregnancy by her brother, and she never suspected a thing. The divorce proceedings are going to get a lot more complicated now that there's a child involved. My lawyer says this revelation about Wally's secret family and financial deception could work in my favor. Wally's been calling constantly, leaving messages begging me not to tell anyone else about James. He's worried it will ruin any chance he has of getting another job in our industry. I don't know how they kept this secret for so long, but I'm done carrying the weight of their lies. Update 3: The divorce was finally finalized last week. Wally didn't contest anything after my lawyer brought up the secret child situation. She argued that his pattern of deception and financial infidelity, hiding money for child support, lying about business trips, strengthened my claim to our joint assets. I got the house, our savings, and my full retirement account. Wally got his car and personal belongings. He didn't even fight for the dog. I found out through Emma that Wally moved in with Betty in a small apartment on the other side of the city. They couldn't afford anything better since neither of them has found stable work. Wally had to take a huge pay cut to work at a much smaller tech company. Turns out having a workplace affair scandal and a secret love child doesn't look great on your resume. Betty's been doing freelance work but struggling to find clients. Wally's parents have maintained contact with me but completely cut him off. His mom told me they're trying to establish a relationship with James through Betty's parents, who apparently had no idea their daughter was involved with a married man. They thought Wally was divorced when Betty got pregnant. His daddy didn't set up a college fund for James, but specifically arranged it so Wally can't access the money. Emma has been my rock through all of this. She's still wrestling with guilt over introducing Betty into our lives, but she's channeled that guilt into helping me move forward. She helped me redecorate the house to remove all traces of Wally and even set me up with a great therapist who specializes in betrayal trauma. The most surprising development came last week when Betty's parents reached out to me. They apologized for their daughter's actions and shared some interesting information. Apparently, this wasn't Betty's first affair with a married man. She had done something similar in college with a professor, but her parents helped cover it up to protect her future career. They enabled her behavior then, but they're not protecting her anymore. Some mutual friends still think I was too harsh in how I handled everything, especially exposing the affair at their workplace. They say I should have considered how it would affect Wally and Betty's careers. But I don't regret anything. They made their choices knowing the potential consequences. Wally chose to father a child with another woman, lied to me about it for years. Betty chose to pursue a married man and then take a job at his company to try to break up his marriage. Last I heard, Wally and Betty's relationship is already falling apart. Emma heard from their cousin that they fight constantly about money and Wally's commitment issues. Turns out it's not so romantic when you have to deal with real life instead of sneaking around having affairs. Betty's apparently jealous because Wally still hasn't proposed, even though they have a child together. She's worried he'll never marry her. Wally tried to reach out last month through a mutual friend. He wanted to apologize and explain his side of things. I declined. I don't need to hear any more lies or excuses. His actions showed me exactly who he is, a man who could cheat on his wife, father a secret child, and then physically assault his wife when caught. There's no explanation that could justify any of that. I've moved on with my life. The promotion I got at work came with an opportunity to lead a new project, which has been a welcome distraction. I bought a condo in a new neighborhood where I don't have to worry about running into Wally or Betty. I've even started dating again, though I'm taking things very slowly and being much more careful about red flags. Sometimes I think about how differently things could have turned out if I hadn't come home early that day or found Betty's diary. I might still be living in ignorance, married to a man who had a whole secret family. As painful as the discovery was, it set me free. And that's worth more than any amount of money or property I got in the divorce. Wally and Betty can have each other. Sometimes the trash takes itself out.